How's it going, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back to my channel. So I'm really excited here. I've decided to do a top 20 of my favorite 70s movies. If you know, recently I've competed in the Tim Talks Talkies challenges for the 80s and 90s. And according to Tim, he's not totally sure if he's going to do one for the 70s because, you know, he got a lot of people to do the 80s and 90s, but I think a lot of people, especially younger people, may not know a lot from the 70s. Yeah, it does get kind of a little more complicated. On my list, I actually have a couple titles that I've seen but I don't own, like Apocalypse Now and Chinatown. And also, there's like three great movies I definitely did check out probably before the end of the year, and that's Network, Dog Day Afternoon, and The Conversation. I've heard so many great things about those movies, but I've never seen them, so I definitely need to check those out sometime. But so my top 20, actually, you know, maybe at some point I'll do a top 25. You have to let me know in the comments if I should do that. Maybe let me know if you would like to see that kind of thing, or you know, those of you that have channels, you know, if you'd like to see Tim do a 70s challenge, you know, I can get that word back to Tim. You know, Tim's a really nice guy, really great guy, and he did his live stream last night for the 80s, and he included my Aliens, what I did for Aliens in my 80s ranking. So that was really cool. Really nice of him to do that. He was showing like live clips from various people on YouTube that have channels. So that was great. But so my top 20 is not all like critically acclaimed types movies. You know, you could say, you know, a lot of these movies, a lot of them are like pop culture kind of movies because that's stuff I love. And I was a little kid in the 70s. I was like, you know, 4 years old in 1977. So I was a young child. So this is still going to be a lot of fun. You know, like I said, there's a lot of like comedies in this. There's some horror movies. So you know, a lot of people, you can let me know in the comments how you would rank these, or if you would include totally different movies. Like I said, there were probably like 4 or 5 movies that I dropped off my list that some of them are kind of critically acclaimed. One was a Stanley Kubrick movie. I have a couple. I think I have at least one Stanley Kubrick movie in here already. You know, still, but. So at number 20, I have Monty Python's Life of Brian. I'm a huge Monty Python fan. You know, there's actually another one on my list that'll be on later. But huge fan of that. You know, in the 70s, they were huge at the time. They're Monty Python's Flying Circus. You know, was big time. So I've got that at number 20. Number 19. This is a Stanley Kubrick movie. It's a Clockwork Orange. This one's definitely really dark kind of movie. You know, Stanley Kubrick, like I said, there was another Kubrick movie that I dropped off my list, but this one's definitely a dark one. It's got David Prowse, the guy that played Darth Vader, was like a bodybuilder in this movie. You know, really imposing kind of character. I think he was close to like 7 feet tall or 6'8", something like that. He was a tall man, but he really scary in this. Malcolm McDowell is really great in the main role in the movie. So yeah, definitely 19. I've got Clockwork Orange. Number 18, this one may be a little bit low for some people, but this is an Oscar winner. It's Rocky from 1976. You know, Sylvester Stallone wrote this movie. He plays Rocky. At the time the studio loved his movie so much that they wanted to use a different like an experienced actor, or Hollywood actor, to play the title role. And Stallone said, "I won't tell you the story if you don't let me play the main characters." That was kind of genius, you know. That really, you know, investing in himself, and you know, he's had this huge career. You know, Rocky and Rambo and all those kind of movies. You know, it's because he did this one, but you know, this one, like I said, won the Oscar. So Rocky at number 18. Number 17, some people might think this is a little bit low. This is another Oscar winner. I've got Annie Hall from Woody Allen. Love this movie. This movie actually won the Oscar over Star Wars. Star Wars was one of the big contenders in '77, in the 1978 Oscars. Annie Hall won. And I love Annie Hall. I think it's a great movie, but it's definitely no Star Wars for sure. But still a great movie though. I love a lot of anybody that loves, like, you know, cinephiles out there that love those classic references that he makes throughout the movie of all these great directors from the past. You know, so they're all in Annie Hall. But at number 16, this one great movie from George Lucas. It's American Graffiti. You know, this movie's having the 50th anniversary this year, I think I actually saw a movie today and took my nephew to see Ninja Turtles, and they showed where they showing the 50th anniversary of American Graffiti. They showed in the previews, so classic movie. Ron Howard's in it, Richard Dreyfuss, great movie. It's like the only as far as direction, the only directed movie that George Lucas did that didn't have like science fiction in it. So it's a standard movie, but love American Graffiti. At number 15, another classic movie. Another classic movie. I love this one. This is a 3-pack, but I've got Grease, top one here. John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, classic based on I think it's based on a Broadway play. I think the play was first, and then the movie came later. But love Grease. My parents loved this movie too. In 1978, I was 5, so I've always loved this movie. It's just a nostalgia for me. I think a lot of my stuff in the 70s is definitely way more nostalgia than just great, critically acclaimed type movies. But this one's just the top one's a lot of fun. The sequel's not bad either. That's from the 80s, but the original is the great one. So at number 14, this one's from Steven Spielberg, and it's not the big one. It's Close Encounters of a Third Kind. You'll see the other one later, but Close Encounters, starring Richard Dreyfuss. It was great. I live in Indiana, and the movie was supposed to be in I think originally going to be in Muncie, Indiana. And you can see Richard Dreyfuss is wearing a T-shirt in the movie that says Ball State. Ball State's in Muncie, Indiana. So I think Spielberg said they just couldn't find all the locations they wanted in Muncie. So they ended up taking it to Wyoming. I think it's where what do they call it, the Devil's Tower that's in the movie. But love this movie though. It's this is his follow-up to Jaws. Richard Dreyfuss was in Jaws, but definitely love this one. It's at number 13, another great movie from Richard Donner, Superman. At 78, taking special effects to a whole new level that no one had ever seen in Hollywood. Just great stuff. Christopher Reeve, great Superman. Like I said, this is the first one from 78, so definitely Superman at 13. At number 12, this one, I'm going to use this box set twice because I've got Godfather 2 at number 12. I'll bring this up again later because the Godfather 1 is definitely going to show up later. Robert De Niro played Don Corleone, or played the character that Marlon Brando played in the first one. He definitely stole the show in this movie. Of course, I love everything about this movie. I think it's a little bit too long. It's like 3 hours and 22 minutes or something like that. It's way longer than the first Godfather, which is like 2 hours and 55 minutes. That's why I love the first one a lot more than the second one. But the sequel is really great too. It's Al Pacino, definitely Michael Corleone. I'd have to watch this again. I think he's in the movie a lot, but he was great in the first one. I liked him a lot more in that one. And Robert De Niro definitely stole the show in this one. I've got at number 11 here. I've got One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jack Nicholson, a really dark movie. So many stars in this. Danny DeVito was in it. Brad Dourif, the guy that plays Chucky, that does the voice of Chucky, was in this. Really dark ending to this movie. It's basically a comedy until you get to the third act, and then it gets way more serious, at that point. But yeah, definitely One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. At number 10, from Martin Scorsese, there was another one that I actually dropped off my list from Scorsese, but this one is Taxi Driver. Definitely, Robert De Niro is really great in the main role of this movie. Really dark movie. If you watch stuff in the 70s, man, people just, movies were a lot darker back then. They loved dark endings, dark stories. It was just that was the thing people did in the 70s. So Taxi Driver, definitely number 10. Number 9, I've got, this is one of the horror movies on my list that I've always loved. I like it more than the original. From George Romero, I've got Dawn of the Dead, the original one. This movie has 2 actors that are from Indianapolis in it, Galen Ross and Ken Foree. Definitely, if you've seen this movie, this movie is way more progressive than anything from 1978, But yeah, definitely Dawn of the Dead. This is the like the bootleg version. I'd love to get the like the 4K of it at some point, the one for overseas. But Dawn of the Dead, I've always loved this movie. I got to see this in a theater. I think it was earlier this year or late last year. Saw it in a theater in 3D, first time ever in seeing it in the theater. But I've always loved Dawn of the Dead. That's at number 8. I've got another one from Monty Python. It's Monty Python and the Holy Grail. This movie is what 1975 is basically is when it was released worldwide. I think it was released like late '74. But yeah, Monty Python definitely, like I said, as much as I like Life of Brian as well, but just the comedy in this, so many quotable lines in this movie. Terry Gilliam, also Terry Jones. So they were considered to be co-directors. If you know, Terry Gilliam was like the animator for Monty Python. He did like the cartoons that they did between the sketches, and so I think Terry Jones probably directed most of this movie, but Terry Gilliam is listed as a co-director on it. But yeah, definitely Holy Grail. So at number 7, this one's a classic horror movie. It's also turning 50 this year, and actually there's a sequel coming out in October. But it's The Exorcist. Yeah, William Friedkin just recently passed away just last week. He directed this in 1973, like I said, the 50th anniversary. I love the third act of this movie. I think that it's kind of a slow build horror movie that a lot of people may not like to, I think they had to really convince people at the time of possession, and so they really sell it. And by the third act, you believe it. And I think that people back then, I think in '73, really needed to be convinced of possession. But definitely, like I said, the third act of this movie is phenomenal. So yeah, that one, The Exorcist, at number 7. At number 6, this one is another classic movie that it's from 1979. And it's a great action movie. It takes place in New York, but the movie is The Warriors. I've always loved The Warriors. It's about these rival street gangs in New York, and just these kids trying to survive the night, basically. And a lot of action in this movie. It's got a lot of violence in it that they really didn't sugarcoat anything. And so always loved The Warriors. So at number 5, this one's from John Carpenter. I've always loved this one from 1978. It's Halloween. Love the first Halloween, like the second one, like the third one. There's some through the franchise that I love. I think the first 3 are my favorite, but definitely the original one is great. It's not extremely not extreme horror necessarily. At the time, I think it was. It's basically a low budget horror, but John Carpenter can definitely make a great movie with a low budget. So love the first Halloween. From Ridley Scott from 1979. It's the original Alien from Sigourney Weaver's really great in this. It just has the ship of the crew on the ship face this deadly alien, and I love the sequel too. I think they had the sequel at number 5 on my 80s top 25, but definitely Ridley Scott's the original Alien I've got that at number 4. At number 3, I'm going to bring my box set back here. I've got the first Godfather. Definitely, I think I always have the original Godfather at number 3. Usually on most of my favorite list of all time, the first Godfather is ranks right up there. It's an Oscar winner, just like the sequel was. Part 2 was, they were both Oscar winners, Best Picture. Definitely, this one, like I said, I got to see this in the theater this was from '72, so I got to see this in 2022 in the theater for the first time. That was a dream come true to see this movie on the big screen. Just a movie I've always loved. So they got that one on number 3. Number 2, this one that's if I were talking about my all-time favorite movies, I'd put the original trilogy. I'd rank it all at like number 1. It would be tied for number 1 because it's all telling one story. But just by itself, I've got the first Star Wars from 1977. Like I said, I would switch it out here with this, and my number 1 would be switched out if I were doing an all-time ranking with the original trilogy at number 1. But just by itself, I love the first Star Wars. This movie is definitely groundbreaking. It broke a box office record that I have. My number 1 movie will be the one that set the record, and this one topped it. But George Lucas, he banked everything on this movie. The studio put so much faith in him, and they were not totally believing that this was going to be great, but it ended up being great. And but I like Empire Strikes Back a little bit more than this one, but the original Star Wars is really great movie. But so at number one from Steven Spielberg, I have Jaws. My favorite movie from the 70s for sure. This is a movie I watch every 4th of July weekend, just because it takes place during that weekend in the movie. So this is from 1975, so it's 48 years old now. But the first Jaws, definitely classic movie that I actually I got to see this in a theater of probably like 5 years ago, and it was like another dream come true to see this movie on the big screen. So definitely the first Jaws at number one. So like I said, please put in the comments how you would rank these, if you want to do a top 10 or top 5, whatever, or give me all 20, whatever you want to do. But like I said, let me know in the comments if you'd like to have Tim do a top 25 70s movies. I'm not sure if we'd be able to get as many people. I think we had like 160 people for the 90s, and Tim said we had close to that for the 80s. I think the 70s we probably wouldn't get as many, but I definitely want to, like I said, those 3 movies I haven't seen yet. I definitely like to check those out, and maybe those would make my list if I got to see them. So please put a thumbs up on this video if you like this content. Please consider subscribing, and have a great one. Thank you.